Okay, so I'm going to talk about how you can get more confidence. It's something that I think a lot of people struggle with, and just to kind of bring you along on my story and how have kind of rediscovered my confidence. It's something that I never really struggled with when I was younger, but often the confidence that I put on was like a false personality. But that's something for another time. But there was a point where I got into such a deep depression that I kind of just forgot how to communicate. So it was hard enough, the idea of even just talking to friends sometimes and actually going out and about and doing stuff, that the idea of talking to someone that I hadn't known for my life was a big thing. So even on the times when I could muster up going to a party or something, I would just spend most of my time with my friends, going from friend to friend as opposed to talking to new people, because it was just, I kind of just forgot how to have a conversation, to be honest with you, and I had to do some retraining in that. And that's, again, that's something I'll go over in another video. But for now, I'm going to talk about my confidence journey. So I found a coach who coached in confidence, and he did this day, where we basically just did a load of training over the day to build up confidence. And it started off small with something that was a bit more manageable, and then it went on to something a lot bigger. And I just kind of wanted to share the story of that in case it helps someone and in case anyone wants to try some of these exercises. If you want to chat about any of this in more depth, I'll put a link in the notes at the bottom, so you can book a call. I'm offering free coaching calls at the moment. So yeah, this confidence day. I mean, I turned up on the day and I was like shitting myself basically because I knew what was going to be coming up. And well, I didn't know entirely, but I knew some of what was going to be coming up, and it made me very, very nervous. And I was so close to backing out and just coming up with an excuse and being like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like my train got cancelled. I don't know. Like I'm feeling ill. Whatever it was." But I stuck with it, and I'm so glad that I did. So I met up with the coach, and the first thing he did was explain to me why we feel so nervous around tribes sometimes. He didn't say the word tribes, but you'll understand why I just said that in a moment. So this comes from our old ancient monkey brain that still functions in the same way as it did millions of years ago. And back then, if you were seen as doing something that didn't fit in with the tribe, or you went and approached another tribe, then it could genuinely have been a case of life or death. So our bodies still think that. We still think that if we go up to someone and say the wrong thing, it could end in death. And yeah, you could argue that sometimes it can end in death, but that's such a small percentage. I'm talking about just going up and having a chat with someone on a train platform. It's very rare that that will go badly in reality, other than maybe a bit of embarrassment. So he explained this, and it put me a bit at ease, but also at the same time, it doesn't stop you. You might understand it intellectually, but it doesn't stop you actually feeling these things in your body. So the way you can get through that is training like the training that I went on. We met at Marble Arch, and there were a few speakers there. It was, sorry, Speakers Corner at Hyde Park, which is near my Marble Arch. And there were people there talking, usually doom and gloom, end of the world, or religious types talking and preaching. And he used them as an example of people that are just talking, speaking their truth, and most people just walk past them and ignore them. So I was like, okay, that's a fair point. I can see where you're coming from. Still, the idea of doing that myself scared the shit out of me. But it was a good introduction to this. So then we walked down over to Oxford Street, which, if you don't know, it is one of the busiest streets, if not the busiest street in London. And he was like, okay, we're going to do the first exercise now. And this first exercise was me standing on one side of the street, on one side of the road, him standing on the other. And obviously people are just walking through, walking between us. like so many people. I want to say hundreds. And he said, okay, what we're going to do is you're going to stand on one side and shout to the other side and tell me about your day so far. Tell me what you had for breakfast, what you had for lunch, stuff that really doesn't matter. But the idea of doing it was scary, obviously. But I started doing it, and you know what? Some people walked past, gave me a funny look, like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Other people just ignored me. But even the people that kind of engaged the most would look at me and then just walk on. And that was the lesson of that part. And that's what he explained to me. He said, yeah, so most people are so in their own worlds that they're going to notice you. And they might think that's weird. And then moments later, they'll just walk on. So that was cool. That was like a good introduction. And didn't feel like too much pressure. I mean, it felt like the right amount of pressure because it was something that made me nervous, but it wasn't so hard that I was going to run away from it. The next exercise was just to walk down Oxford Street, and anyone that was coming our way, anyone facing us, I would have to give them a compliment. So it's a lovely thing. It was just walking through, so we're walking opposite directions. So I'd be walking through being like, oh, nice jacket, nice hat. Oh, cool glasses, whatever it was. And this exercise was again brilliant because it trained my brain, trained my body into realizing that, you know what, most people will pay attention for a little bit. Some people will be like, oh, thank you, that's made my day. And that's beautiful, that really made me happy. Other people would see it and just ignore it or just be like, fuck off, weirdo, but then walk on. And because we were walking and constantly moving, it really sort of put into perspective that, you know what, a lot of people just will move on. And yeah, you might make a fool of yourself, but people will move on, and they'll, by the time they're about 20 paces ahead, they've probably forgotten about it, or they're chatting to their friend again. So that was cool. And then after that was where it started getting a little bit more intense. So this point was, we were going down to a tube station, and at this point I was like, I don't know what's happening. And then we got down to the tube station, got on the train, and just before we got on the train, sorry, he explained to me what we were going to do, or what I was going to do. And he's like, right, we're going to start at one end of the carriage, and between this stop and the next stop, you're going to go to every single person on this carriage and give them a compliment. And this is like, fuck. Like at the time, I was quite claustrophobic as well. Sometimes I didn't really do well on the tube. Most of the time I was fine, but occasionally it would be a bit like... And this is also kind of funny, the claustrophobia, because I'm now a cave diver and I absolutely love it. But that's another story for another time. So yeah, when the train pulled off and I was like, oh, here we go. It's now or never. And I was doing it, and he explained that this is what would happen before, but I was like, my heart was beating so fast, I started to drip with sweat, like shaking, so anxious. And I just went past saying something to everyone. And there was occasionally sometimes where someone would be a bit awkward. There were times when someone would start talking back to me and start being like, why have you said that? That's weird. What are you doing? And this is why it was good to have him there, because he just said, he reminded me, like, George is like, just move on, just keep going. Your job at the moment is just to say a compliment to everyone. You're not engaging people in conversation. So that was a good reminder, because I did start to engage one person. But yeah, walked through and then got to the end of the carriage, got to the next stop, got off, and I was like, oh, so much relief. But at the same time, so much like thrill. I was so excited to have completed this and to complete this challenge. And I look back on it now, and it was just it was like pushing to the point of tension, so far to the tension that eventually the tension snapped, and then it was like, poof, like freedom. So if you imagine you're tied with some kind of elastic rope to something solid, and you just start walking along, and you feel the tension, and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and then all of a sudden it snaps, and there's just freedom, and it's like, wow, I feel great. After this, we then went to Carnaby Street, which is quite a cool street, quite a trendy street. There are quite a few people, but not as much as Oxford Street. And at this point, he was like, okay, we're now going to just start talking to random people. And I was like, oh, I've just done this big exercise and felt this big freedom. I was like, and I was wanted to celebrate a bit more, but there was more work to do. And again, so glad that he pushed me through this, because yeah, this is one of the big changing points in my life doing this. So having this newfound confidence, but still knowing that there was a bit more tension to push through, there was another rope to snap, if you like, was the experience was really cool and interesting. And I found that most people either don't have time and can't be bothered, and it's just like, okay, next. Don't worry about it. Don't start thinking, shit, should I have said something differently? What if this, blah, blah, blah. Just be like, nope, on to the next person. Just, hey, how are you? Literally, it can just be as simple as that. Um, and if you're struggling, if you want to do something like this, just asking for directions could be a simple one, or asking for the time. It's just a bit of an opener. So yeah, we did this, and then we started talking to more people. Ended up having a few quite nice conversations, to be honest with you. Added a few people on social media, which is a nice thing. Wasn't expecting that. So yeah, I was kind of, that's how much more confident I was by the end of it. And we sat down, we had a chat afterwards, and debriefed, and it was great. And he gave me a bit of feedback, but just effectively said, well done, you've done that. And it was such a big achievement. I'm so proud of myself for doing that. And it's opened so many doors now. And it was such a thrill. And it had such a big benefit that, and I never would have thought I would have done this before doing this day. But I was then going out and actively doing this. I made sure that I would speak to 5 people each day, even if it was just to ask for directions or the time, or go and compliment someone on their earrings and just be like, oh yeah, the reason I'm asking is because my sister's been looking for something like that. Doesn't matter if it's true or not, but it's just an excuse to talk to someone. And if you're worried about the way that you come across, or that you're worried that you look like you're, I don't know, hitting on someone, then use that as a little sort of get out to be like, no, don't worry, I'm not like a threat in that sense. So yeah, that was really cool. And then doing one big intense day like that meant that it wasn't too bad doing it afterwards. And I actually went and did this a few more times, various parts of it, like the complimenting walking down Oxford Street. I even did the tube journey thing on my own, because we'd done it a few times that day, and it was such a big release and relief at the end of it that I kind of wanted to experience that again. So I've done that a few times since. And I didn't know it at the time, but this was going to unlock something for me that which I am so grateful to have had the opportunity. And basically the guy that was teaching this to me, the coach, he was a stand-up comedian as well. And this planted a seed in my head, and I can't remember how long it was afterwards. I don't know if it was a few months or a year, but in that kind of time frame, I then went and fulfilled one of my all-time dreams, which was to become a stand-up comedian. And I did that, and I did that for a few years, and I'm tempted to go back to it still. But again, that's another story for another time. For this one, I just really wanted to talk to you about this confidence training, because it's something that anyone can replicate. It's something that you can do on a big scale or you can do it on a small scale. You can start by just asking people for directions and making sure you actually listen to them and see if you can start a conversation. Say, I'm looking to go to a coffee shop, but I don't really want to go to a Starbucks. Is there any that you can recommend around here? Or I want to go to this attraction, this exhibition, this museum. Have you been there before? Oh, cool. What did you see? And because it's just a random conversation on the street, if it goes wrong, doesn't matter. Probably never going to see them again. And if you do, I doubt you're going to recognize each other. And the second thing is, you could even call it if you don't. If you start a conversation and you're like, "Oh no, this is too much," you can just be like, "Well, thanks for the directions. I'm off," and build on that. There's lots you can do around this, but I wanted to share this because for me, this proved to me that confidence is something that you can train for. And I believe now I'm quite a confident person, but at the time, I can't emphasize enough how big of a deal this was. Like, I was scared to leave the house sometimes. I was just so in such a dark place. I hope you've gained something of value out of this. If you are going to try any of this, let me know in the comments. And if you want me to talk about this and have a chat with you about anything like this, then again, I'd love to. This is like, it thrills me. I'm so appreciative of that transformation that I really want to help other people go through that transformation as well. So yeah, drop me a message, drop me a comment, subscribe so that you can get more stuff like this, and book a call if you want. I'd love to hear from you. Cool. Thank you.